what's up, YouTube? Welcome back to another episode of Three Simple Men Making Their Way Through the Galaxy. I'm Tom. With me is Ryan and Mike. And today we're back in the Clone Wars Season 3, Episode 3 this time.
We made it.
I got it right. Fellas, by the way, how are we doing?
Good. How about you?
Doing good.
Nailed that intro now. I'm good.
So I'll hop right in just with the opening quote again. I think it's good to just probably read these in the beginning just so we can have it in the back of our mind throughout the discussion. In this case, the quote that the episode started off with was, "Where there's a will, there's a way." So that's kind of our quote to go into this episode, which finds us on a new planet, right? That we haven't been to yet, which I always love the new stuff. We're on Ryloth.
Mm-hmm. Home of the Twi'leks, yep. And we see them caught in the middle of a battle between Republic and the Separatists, and unfortunately, supplies are running low for them, and they're desperate. They want the Republic. They want to contact the Republic and the Jedi Council and send in reinforcements as soon as possible. So with that, unfortunately, we see the Republic getting pummeled by the Separatist blockade that came up, and they can barely get a message out to the Jedi Council, and unfortunately, the Republic fleet is destroyed, so they're stranded.
Well, and who's stranded? We get the introduction to a new character, Chum. Is it Chum or Cham?
Cham.
Yeah.
My A's look like U's. Cham Syndulla, which I don't want to get any further than what I'm just going to say, but if you're currently watching the new Ahsoka show, the name
Rebels,
Syndulla,
or if you watch Rebels,
or if you've watched Rebels, but if you've watched Rebels and not watched Clone, I don't know what you're doing. You really should watch both. But anyway, that last name should sound familiar, and that's all I'm going to say. Not going to get into it because we'll get there eventually. But it's fun to get to Cham, and we also meet another Jedi, Dai, is his name. General Dai.
Master Dai. Yep.
Master Dai. Interesting name choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we'll find out why.
Yeah. But can I just go back for a little second?
Yeah.
Since we're talking about Ryloth, you have to understand, and I think this comes back to when we were watching the Clone Wars animated movie with, Tatooine being caught in like the whole Clone Wars conflict. It's Ryloth was also a neutral, like, we don't want any part of this war type of planet. And now it's seeing itself getting caught. And this is how intense and how crazy things have gotten in the Clone Wars, because now you're going to see it. More neutral planets are just going to be affected by this war,
Well, and that's a good segue into the other planet we get introduced to, the neutral planet, Toydaria, where we learn that the Jedis are probably they're too far away to get to Ryloth in time, but there's a closer planet, Toydaria, that they could launch supply ships from. So they reach out to our good friend, Senator Bail Organa, they being Obi-Wan, Yoda and Mace Windu, and they request that Bail divert to Toydaria to help with negotiations, because there's only the representative from Naboo who is not a good negotiator, where Bail's quite confused because Senator Amidala is a great negotiator. So why would they say that? But we get Obi-Wan revealing that Senator Amidala could not leave Coruscant, and it is in fact Representative Jar Jar Binks. He's back, ladies and gentlemen.
He's back.
Jar Jar is back, and you can see by Obi-Wan's face that there is no faith in Jar Jar being able to do anything of help, which is why they have to send Bail in to hopefully save the day.
Pretty much, they just went towards the reliever. Give me the reliever. Bottom of the ninth. We need the guy to get it 1, 2, 3.
So with that, we end up on the planet of Todaria, which are a species that we've met before.
Our good old Watto from episode 1 to episode 2. And unfortunately, once Bale lands, he doesn't really have that nice welcome. There's like, what are you doing here, off-worlder? Like, shouldn't be here. And he's like, hey, I gotta talk to the king directly, and I gotta make my case. And then you see Jar Jar's like, oh hey, Misa here, and he doesn't really get that kind of hello from the Toydarians like they did with Bail Organa. So it's just like, yep, let's just move along. And yeah, two different interactions. So it seems like Jar Jar is getting along with the locals a little bit better.
But I think that's just like I said, that's an effect that neutral systems have. If they see someone who's with the Republic or from the Separatists, they're just like, "What are you doing here?" It's like, "Did you have authorization?" Because, like I said, they want no part of this war. So, because at this point, that's what's everyone's mind is war. However, with the Toydarians now, Brian, you'll go back into it. It's about a agreement they have with the Trade Federation.
Yeah. So Bale and Binks managed to make it, or in Jar Jar, managed to get in front of the king, and as they begin to plead their case, they get interrupted by Senator Lot Dodd, who is the senator from the Trade Federation, who has shown up claiming that he is not in line with the Separatists, but wants to argue that doing anything to help the Republic would upset the Separatists, who would then take it out on the Trade Federation. So they don't want them to do anything to help the planet of Ryloth, which, obviously bull. I mean, we know the Trade Federation is completely in cahoots with the Separatists, and because we actually see. I'm sorry, I skipped over the scene. We actually see Count Dooku for a brief scene where where the droids come and inform him they intercepted the comms saying that and found out that Bail Organa is being sent to Toydaria to negotiate this treaty. So obviously they're working with the Separatists because Dooku has a direct line to the senator of the Trade Federation.
And I think, I guess I'll just get into my hot take right now.
Okay.
It's the senator that they used, the politician they used, because I think the hot take is, once Count Dooku learned that it was going to be Senator Organa who goes in there, instead of, Senator Binks still being there, Dooku realizes, well, Senator Organa is a well-respected, intelligent politician. So you got to match him politics for politics, because if you just send someone mediocre, it's just going to be a win for the Republic.
Yeah, it's interesting that they reference, I mean, if he's like the senator from the Trade Federation, but he's like, I thought he mentioned that he's there on behalf of the Separatists, but you'd be surprised that, you have two different, senators in the same republic that, they're with different views going to be like, yeah, we need
That's what happens, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but no, he said he wasn't with the Separatists.
Well, I thought there was a reference to the Separatist Senate or something, but I know there was a reference to the Republic, but I forget.
He said, so because he specifically said when he was accused, he said, "How dare you?" And he says, the Viceroy, Newt Gunray, he said he was a heretic, and he we don't follow him at all, and that the trade fair, because that's the idea, right? We know from what we've seen in the movies is the Trade Federation has representation at in the Galactic Senate at Coruscant. I mean, they had it every time, and they were sitting there being like, "Oh no, we're not taking over Naboo. That's ridiculous." So it's that's who in my understanding was, this is just the senator to the Galactic Senate from the Trade Federation. But as we kind of learned in the past, it seems like there's a few groups of the senates that, you know, the senators or that the senators represent that have joined the separatist army, you know.
Yeah.
But
And
can we just rewind it back a little
that's how
bit?
a civil war kind of, and I guess the Clone Wars kind of is a civil war, right?
Can we just rewind it back a little bit? Because now that we're talking about that, it's a whole idea of like not everyone in the Trade Federation agrees with Viceroy Gunray. But if we go back to Attack of Clones, and once Anakin and Padme are sitting with the Queen in her chambers where they're staff, you hear one of the aides or one of the I guess politicians, you want to call them, goes, after numerous trials, Viceroy Gunray is still leader of the Trade Federation. So he's saying he doesn't agree with him, but if Viceroy Gunray with the Separatists is still leader of the Trade Federation, then chances are he's with the Separatists because he
well, maybe that's changed at this point, right? Maybe he's no longer the leader, but or at least on paper, who knows? You know,
That's
but
just
definitely there's no doubt that the Trade Federation is bad. I think it's just we see that. I think we understand it, but I think for Senator, and that's the same thing. That's the same reason why Dooku chose, right, diplomacy. He sent this senator to go deal with this when, like, why, you know, if think of what sitting ducks like. There's like no security with Organa or Jar Jar. If and that senator just came up behind him. What if he just sent a bunch of droids? Just go in there and kill the senators, you know? Like that could have been the plan. And he didn't do that because he knew, like, no, we still have this kind of guise of like, oh, well, the Trade Federation, you know, they're concerned about trade routes. They don't want to separate. They're still part of it. They're concerned about, and you know, so it lets them kind of,
it's all about representation.
it lets them manipulate things.
Themselves. Yeah, that makes sense.
So during this discussion, though, we do get the quote from the king: "Compassion is a sacred Toydarian value." And my question I'm posing to both of you, not to judge an entire country by or an entire planet by one individual from there, but our previous encounter with the Toydarian, I wouldn't say compassion. I don't think he had a compassionate bone in his body. What did you guys think?
Mike, you want to take this one?
You first.
Okay, let me collect my thoughts for a second. Okay, so it's ironic that they believe like compassion is a sacred thing, and you know it's commendable, it's respectable. But when our first encounter of a Toydarian, Watto, he showed no compassion. I think the only little compassion he showed was tell Anakin to clean the racks or something, then he can go home. Where you saw Anakin, young little Anakin, get excited, but that's it. We saw
that's a yippee, right?
Yeah. But then you just see him, you know, for him it was all about money and greed. Granted, they're still honoring their, you know, trade routes with the Trade Federation, but it's all more about business. It's not about, you know, personal gain for them. I'm kind of going off the rails at this point, because there's really not much to go on it because we only saw Watto for what he is, but we never. This is the first time we're actually exploring the Toydarians as a planet, so it's hard to really understand.
And I think why I kind of want to bring that up is I think it's kind of interesting where we haven't really seen it yet, but we will see it in the future of these. You know, we get introduced to like these planets that have their own, you know, government and own belief systems in some senses, and then we see an individual that's gone off from that planet and doesn't necessarily follow that, right? Like he's living his life on Tatooine as a
owner and lead with the pods,
and like a gambler and all that, and it doesn't seem like that's what his, you know, his home planet is all about. And again, I think it's something that we're going to see in the future of Star Wars with some other characters, you know, whether it be, we haven't really met them yet, but, you know, some Mandalorians that don't necessarily live the life of Mandalore, or and other planets where it's like, yeah, they're off doing something else, whether it's our buddy Chewbacca, or I got the shirt on, he's behind me, so it's kind of interesting, and we'll see how that kind of plays into it, that not all the species are just random. They kind of they do have these origin planets and stuff.
Yeah,
New
I mean,
hot
I was
take.
just saying,
Watto was exiled.
yeah, I mean, it was just hard to book or judge a planet by one individual. And yeah, I mean, you can really see that during the talks because, like, Bill Organa is reminding them, yeah, I mean, you guys are, this is a humanitarian crisis. We want to help them out, but we need your help. And then, of course, and they're on board with it. Then once Dodd drops, oh, hey, by the way, you're asking us to get involved in a war here, and Republic and separatists, and let's not forget you have a contract with the Trade Federation. So unfortunately, just that whole dependence on the Trade Federation versus their values of compassion, helping out. Unfortunately, you really just see that you know which which is the right choice here. So I think you might go. I think, and I hate to drop an Ahsoka thing, but it might be the right choice, but it'll have the wrong consequences, because I think that was something that came up with the Ahsoka series that we're seeing. So yeah, it could be right, but you never know.
I mean,
Well, so hold on real quick though, just to finish the other thought. So with Watto though, we're not just judging it based on his actions, his words, right? I'm kind of remembering a quote from Watto. He says when Qui-Gon tries to do a mind trick on him, he says, "You can't do a mind trick on a Toydarian. We only understand two things. Is it
only
Yeah.
money and what?"
All right. I think it might have been just only money.
There's
It's only money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now we don't see that at all here. So it's like, what, he's
Yeah.
just got his own headcanon of what his species was like. And
It's also the younger Rim too. Like, they're not involved with the Republic.
true.
They're not. Yeah, it's just the
So
wild
this is
stuff.
why
But what I
I
want everyone to keep an eye out for. Sorry, Tom, 1 second. Sorry. But what I want to think about is going forward, if we see this species again or this race, are at any point is like a Jedi mind trick used on them? Was it just Watto who was immune to it, or is it the species that just cannot be, Jedi mind tricked? Sorry, go ahead, Tom.
Well, two things. One, like I said, that was my latest hot takes. Okay, that's why I think he got exiled, and he went to a planet where his greed would fit in perfectly, and that would be Tatooine. That being said, moving forward, my question is, when the two senators were debating about how this is a humanitarian crisis and how the Trade Federation opposition said they sympathize, then why wouldn't the king just be like, if I can just stay neutral and honor agreement and help out the people of Ryloth, I'd go to Trade Federation and be like, what is your solution of helping these people out instead of, they're starving to death? It's like, they want to get made, but you don't want, you want to honor our agreement. So what's the compromise that we can all work together? If you want to be neutral, then you got to get all three parties involved, man.
I think the king picked up on the fact that the Trade Federation wasn't going to budge. They weren't going to be people that they could negotiate with. And I think he just decided, I'm going to tell them what they want to hear. And because as soon as he rules, okay, we're not going to do anything, the next scene is him popping up to Organa and Binks and being like, we need to do something, and we need to not let them know that we did it. And they basically strike a side deal. So I don't think he wanted to. I think he understood what was going on. I think he read the situation, was like, yeah, no, these guys are definitely bad. And he even says, I'm going to jump ahead, and then, we can probably finish up area and then go back to Ryloth. But
I mean, technically, we're right into where we're at in the sequence where they have that conversation.
Well, I was going to say, and then it jumps ahead though later to them being like, let's talk to the Jedi and let's consider abandoning, but I am getting ahead. So let's hop over to Ryloth, right? We finally get some more battling. And we get some Jedi fighting in the Clone Wars. We get Jedi Die, who comes up with a strategic plan to blow up the only escape ship they have, to cut off the separatists' route and have them bottleneck so they can hold them off, to give the residents of Ryloth enough time to escape. Which it seems like Cham Syndulla appreciates, that kind of realizes that, okay, it seems like a bit of a sacrifice and they're going to do that for us, so we'll move on. And we get kind of the last stand of General Dai or Jedi Master General Dai and Captain Keeley of the Clone Army.
Yeah, I will say, just like, yeah, you could tell that, Cham Syndulla, unfortunately, supplies haven't arrived, and he's like, yeah, the Republic's completely ignoring us. So I think you see a little bit of foreshadowing down the road that, not everyone, unfortunately, I think, Ryan, I don't know if I'm going to take a quote from you here, but it's like,
No, I already did my quote, so.
It's like promises turn to hopes or something. So I think, unfortunately, with them being in the bind that they are, unfortunately the Republic didn't come around as fast as the Champ hoped. Unfortunately, he's questioning, does he want to remain allied with the Republic? And you can see that frustration. Then he had his right hand guy talking to Jedi Die, and we'll do what we can to help out. And I think Cham's right hand guy was a little more sympathetic to the Republican Jedi versus Cham. So that's the only thing I would say, as they were trying to formulate the plan and get it all worked out. But then, yeah, we see them coming down on them, and then, yeah, you take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, so they blow up the ship. The Twilks escape, and yeah, it's a last stand, and we get our first Jedi death since the events of the breaking out of the war in Attack of the Clones, right? We haven't seen a Jedi die since. And again, we laughed at it in the beginning because this Jedi's name is Jedi Die, and it seems like he was only written to die. So that's, him and Keeley get shot up a bunch and at least appear to be killed. I don't remember what happens next, but I feel like Mike's smirking a little, so maybe he's not actually dead. We'll see.
Actually, no, because it's actually his full name, and I looked this up. His name is I'm a Gun Die. So yes, very foreshadowing of I'm gonna die here.
Oh my wow, yeah. So they really went for the joke name. Is that your deep dive? Because that's a good one.
That's the deep dive, yeah.
Dude, that's like
last week's episode. But I'm just like, I really hope he doesn't say it.
Classroom type of stuff, like Seymour Butts and stuff like that. It's just.
So
I was hoping he wouldn't actually say the full name, but I looked at it and just like, wow, I'm a Gun Die. And then there was the admiral who was up in space, and I looked this up on Star Wars.
He was General Dao, DAO.
Yeah, but when on the Easter egg stuff, it's like, oh, it's an anagram for DOA, dead on arrival. So it's like, oh, it's really foreshadowed.
Yeah, General Dao. Dead on arrival.
Yeah,
wow, we got to pay attention to that. They're really messing around. That's deep. That's some funny stuff for the adults, right? That's why you kind of wonder, like, people say, oh, it's animated, it's a kid show, but like kids aren't going to pick up on Dead on Arrival or I'm gonna die.
Yeah, and unfortunately we don't see a happy ending for the Jedi and the clones. You would think that they'd come up with a genuine way of winning the battle, but unfortunately, they achieved, giving the Twi'leks time to escape, but unfortunately they all died in the process. So
they sacrificed themselves. They did everything they could for the and that's why it's like, Cham was like upset. He was like, oh, they don't do enough, blah, blah, blah. And we'll see. I hope he realizes like what sacrifice was just made for his family. Like, you know,
It's the harsh reality of war that, the good guys may not win all the battles, and we see that here. And I guess we'll just hop back to Toydaria, because then we get to the part of where Jar Jar
Jar
becomes very useful and uses his clumsiness to distract the Trade Federation long enough.
Which is ironic because what he does is not clumsy at all.
Yeah, it was pretty successful actually. He
Yeah,
managed to juggle. He took everyone's dishes, juggled them, managed to throw them and stack them on top of each other quite impressively.
and the
I wouldn't
cup.
be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if his ability to stack those plates is something people reference when arguing that he's secretly a Sith. Um, but that was yeah, it was a fun Jar Jar distracting. It wasn't anything wise or anything
Yep. And
too
then
great, but he did what he had to do, right? He distracted, and they got those ships out in time to at least get some supplies. Which didn't they say it was only enough supplies for 2 rotations?
Like a
yeah,
day or two, yeah.
Yeah, and I was gonna say rotation is just a day, right? Isn't that the
I would assume.
concept of, or however long a day might be on that planet, right?
I would assume
Depending
so.
on how far away the sun is and the rotating, whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's funny at the end too, because like Dot's like, "Oh, I just found out that the Republic blockade runners made it to Ryloth. It's like, you guys had a hand." And it's like, "Well, no, we didn't." And just like,
yeah, it should have been like, how'd you know?
yeah, it's like, yeah, we can take this up with the Galactic Senate, and just like, oh, they're gonna take too long, and you just see the bureaucracy and politics at play here, and it actually worked out in favor of the Republic this time around, because normal, like you referenced earlier, Tom, with Newt Gunray being charged. Unfortunately, it didn't go in the way of the good guys after the blockade. Newt Gunray was free, and he got away scot free with all those. But now you see it flip the other way. It's like, well, yeah, bring it up with the Senate. Oh, it'll take years to resolve it, and yeah, worked out for them. Worked out for the good guys this time.
He just took that loss at that point. He's like, I know it, you know it, we all know it, but legally, nothing's gonna get done. So just call it what it is.
And then we see a change of heart at the end, where he's like, "Yeah, I'm reconsidering my neutrality, and I want to join the Jedi." And Bail Organa's, "Yep, let's get in contact with Yoda, and we'll make this happen." So, well, now we're going to see how long people's neutrality will be with this war. And fortunately for them, I mean, fortunately it wasn't a battle on Toydaria, but again, from what we were saying, with the humanitarian crisis, appealing to the Toydarians in power, not the Wattos of Toydaria, but you see that, this war is gonna change who you are, and do you want to stick with who you are, or do you need to change with the times? And you know
And that's the thing about neutral systems too, that it really does suck. It's like I said, the war is coming. Like it finds a way towards you, whether you like it or not. It's like the battle may not be on your planet or may not affect your planet, but sooner or later you have to realize you may be in a system where a planet is becoming a battlefront, and sooner or later that's
it'll
gonna
come to you.
it's just gonna come to you.
I mean, that's the theme of most of Star Wars that we've seen so far, right? I mean, even scaling it down to just what was happening on the planet of Naboo in Phantom. The Naboo, they had to go to the Gungans and say, and the Gungans were like, no, 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 we want no part of your war. And they're like, it's coming. It's going to come to you. It's right. It's an ecosystem. They're a symbiotic ecosystem, and that it's going to, what affects one of you will affect the other. You must see that. I believe I'm paraphrasing Obi-Wan. But that's going to continue and continue and continue, Tom. You're absolutely right. And here we see it where, it's 2 planets, right? Because you said in the beginning, Ryloth didn't want to, they wanted to be neutral, and they got pulled into it, and and now they're right in it, forced to fight in it, still not sure whose side they really necessarily want to be on. It sounds like, I mean, they're fighting against the separatists, but Cham, as the freedom fighter, isn't too happy with how he's being treated by, or perceives that he's being treated by, the Republic. And then alternatively, you have the planet of Todaria, where they don't want to be a part of it because they don't want to, but then they realize how, who they're really dealing with, and how the separatists are terrible. from what they've seen. So they've decided like, hey, let's do more to help the Republic.
Yeah, it's for them it's more about their morals and what their code of conduct of what they believe in. And yeah, for Cham Syndulla, it's you can, like you said, Ryan, he doesn't really is fond of the Republic, but neither are the Separatists. It's more of like the enemy of my enemy is my friend type of situation right now. And
So, and I'm sure we'll see a lot more of this, and kind of this theme going forward. We'll definitely see more of, do you fight or do you not? And if you don't, how long can you get away with not fighting? All right. Anything else, fellas?
I'm good.
Yep, me too. So with that, that's a wrap. Thank you everyone for joining Three Simple Men, making their way through the galaxy. Hit that like, comment, subscribe, and come back next week for some more Star Wars, Clone Wars content. May the Force be with you, always.